It's really important, I'd say, to understand your why, right? Like, why do you want to do that, right? And speaking to having Canadian audiences and content and Canadian dermatologists or other HCPs, sometimes it's just about getting people to know you. And maybe that will open doors with building your practice. Or if you want to do more aesthetics, certainly having people understand who you are and what you do is important. I think when you know your why, like, is it education? Is it building your practice? Is it because you love being creative? When you know that, it makes it so much more easy to engage in it and put in the effort and work.
Welcome back to the Med Creator 101 podcast, the go-to podcast for HCPs. I'm Mimi Banks, founder of MB Social, and I'm here, as always, with my co-host, Dr. Dustin Portella, board-certified dermatologist and dermfluencer.
Thank you, Mimi. It's always good to be here. And today we're thrilled to welcome to the podcast Dr. Katie Beleznay. She's a dual board-certified dermatologist in Canada and the United States. She is based in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia, where she's part of the faculty at the University of British Columbia's Department of Dermatology. And she has published over 50 peer-reviewed papers and textbook chapters, and she's deeply involved in clinical research and education. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Katie.
Thanks so much for having me, you guys.
You've probably seen Dr. Katie online on TikTok and Instagram, where she shares science-backed, approachable skincare education and really helps debunk misinformation about cosmetic dermatology and skincare. So we want to talk all about that, but before we dive in, we always like to ask our guests personal questions, what we call Beyond the Bio. Are you up for it?
I'm up for it. Let's do it.
All right. So this is a new one, Dustin. I don't think we've asked this one before. Are you right-handed or left-handed?
Oh, right-handed.
Interesting. I'm lefty. Dustin, what are you?
I'm a right-hander.
I wonder what the proportion is. Probably like, I don't know. I was going to guess 90-10, but I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 80-90% right-handed, so.
Do you speak French?
I wish. I mean, I'm in Canada, so you have to have a bit. So I have high school French, but not enough to be fluent.
Okay. Favorite snack?
I'd probably go savory, like nachos or something like that.
Oh, yum. I'm a pretzel person. What are you, Dustin?
I like a good trail mix, like not with the raisins and the M&Ms and stuff, but like mixed nuts, I guess, but no peanuts, like all the other ones.
I thought you were going to say not like the regular one, like with M&Ms. You were about to surprise me with that one.
Yeah, no, I guess just mixed nuts, not trail mix, but you got to get rid of the peanuts. They're not that good.
We also haven't asked this, and I'm actually very curious about creators. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
I think we can all agree there. CapCut, Canva, or Photoshop?
CapCut, but to be honest, my husband does most of my editing, so that's on him, but I believe that's what he mostly uses.
You guys team up in the creative process.
Yeah, it's a good synergy there. He helps with the edits, which is awesome.
Huge.
Yeah, very good. Is that a skill he already had or had to pick up when you started doing social media?
I mean, his background is like Silicon Valley tech. He like helped manage YouTube creators, so he had more of an in the space, like definitely more knowledge coming from that area, and his background is more business, but he was in digital media. So he was, I think, a little more of an impetus for me to get involved, to be like, hey, there's a lot of opportunity here. This is a way to educate. And so he's definitely helped facilitate that transition.
Yeah, very cool. Well, on that note, I wanted to ask about your early days of social media and what inspired you to get started other than your husband saying, let's get going on this. What was it for you that made you want to start getting active on social media, and when did that happen?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, maybe like a lot of creators, it was probably around the time of COVID when things shut down, clinic wasn't happening. And I used to, I was kind of on that academic track, speaking at a lot of conferences, and then that all just shut down. And that was sort of how I was going around and educating and speaking about my areas of expertise. And so I realized I could kind of pivot to social media as a way to educate and ultimately reach more people. And so that's sort of the beginning of where it started.
And do you remember like the first piece of content that you posted, what it was?
I had to do a then and now post for some sort of talk I gave around social media. And I think my first one or close to my first one was just like me at a podium, like a still image at the AAD, American Academy of Derm meeting. And it had like, I don't know, 4 likes or something. But that was back in the day when it was just like a single image and that was about it.
So you were active on Instagram like pre-video era?
pre-video when it was still more photo, obviously got more into it when video was kind of coming up. I was slower to join TikTok, being a little more, like I didn't want to do the dancing when it came out and I couldn't quite envision how to like build that into my life. And the academic setting I was practicing in, it felt like a little daunting at the time. So
And so what did make you join TikTok? I'm curious, how has that changed or what is your comfort level now based on from where you started?
well, so what made me start it? I mentioned my husband, and he was kind of looking at all the different things that were out there. And he was kind of like, yes, we should go on TikTok. But also, actually, one of the brands I think was really encouraging me to go on TikTok. And they're like, I think you should go on TikTok. This is where brands are looking to sort of promote content and talk about content. And so there was a few nudges all at once. And finally, I did. And also just was like, okay, I can do it the way I want to do it. It doesn't have to be what I perceived TikTok needed to be at the time. And so I think that's sort of what started it for me. And obviously just slower to begin with because Instagram felt like a space I knew that's sort of where I had started.
And what was your approach? So when you started, it was your husband, it's about education. Has your vision or goals changed since when you started?
I don't think it's changed. I think it's evolved. Like, still, I think to be, a trusted source on skin health and combat some of that misinformation that is prevalent and still, like, you kind of think, oh, we're going to bust all the myths. And you're like, why are they still coming? And they're still so strong and loud in this space. And so I think that's still an area. And then also, my primary practice is cosmetic dermatology and aesthetics. And, we see a lot of information around skincare. And I think that is where a lot of the interest is from the consumer and patient, be it that it's so everyone is impacted by that and interested in that. But I do try to help educate a little bit more on cosmetic dermatology. And so, yeah, a little bit of a mix, I'd say.
Speaking of those misconceptions and myths, I like to call people, TikTok educated. They graduated from TikTok University. Dustin and I talk about this a lot. What is the biggest misconception or myth that you've seen that hasn't gone away?
Oh man, there's so many. I think definitely right now, like sunscreen causes cancer, like that one, and the sunscreen fear mongering, how good the sun is, how bad sun protection in various forms is, I think still gives me pause and surprise that it's so strong. But there's a lot. I mean, filler looks unnatural, retinoids thin the skin. You need to do this or that to detox your skin. Like they all pop up. And then, as I mentioned, sometimes you're surprised at how rooted they are or how many people like the views and virality of some of those posts are.
Oh, it's wild.
So nowadays, if somebody is not familiar with your content, do you have like content pillars? Like, how would you describe your approach to things that you hit on? You talked a little bit about the cosmetic, the aesthetic, but do you think of like core pillars of your content?
I do to some extent. Like, I remember when everyone was doing the like color coded grids and like they do a still post and then a carousel and then a video like this and kind of trying to be strategic about it. That never resonated with me because part of trying to stay in social media is feeling like it's something different and you're engaging in it, right? So I'm not prescriptive about like what I do. I'm kind of like, oh, this is interesting. I'm going to post on this, but it doesn't necessarily have to fit into a pillar or a certain day a week. That might be easier, but I tend to be like, ooh, I'm going to do it. And I feel like the best way to talk about this particular topic may be to stitch someone's video, or in some cases, I'll make a photo carousel post. But in general, in terms of buckets, I still try and do primarily short form. I don't do like really long talking videos. Generally stay under a minute. And I would say most of it is like I do a mix of stitches with other creators, educating about that topic. Some still post building that back in now that we've seen the algorithm changing and still posts are coming back a bit. My own just videos on topics, either myth busting or top three or, more bulleted type of list content. And then I do try to weave in some memes or like humor stuff, often weaving in my husband or kids in that type of content that's a little more like family friendly but funny. And then intermittently a cosmetic post just to kind of educate on those topics. So as you can see, it's a little bit all over the map, but that's the way that kind of keeps me interested.
And I think that's important. You have to enjoy doing it or you're not going to continue to do it. I see your posts with your husband, with your kids. That I think really portrays a lot of authenticity about who you are and what you value. And it's something that your audience can resonate with.
And also, I think it resonates and also it helps you stand out because in this age of social media, a lot of people post the same and want to find a way to figure out what their niche is, what is their lane, what is their brand or reason for being on social media.
Yeah. And I think, as we've seen with social media, a lot of it is just people want to see the real you and know, and they want to get pearls, but they want it to feel conversational and that you're like another person just talking to them about this stuff, right? And it's not top down, it's not too authoritative, it's just conversational. And so I find trying to weave that in, and that is my personality. Like I'm fairly casual and I'll just be like, hey, we're going to chat about this. Yes, with professionalism, because I want to educate in the right way. I'm not the person that's going to be like, this is the only way you should do it. I know that that sometimes gets the algorithm happy when you're like very dramatic and say the like shock value things. But I still want to like stay in my lane of like where I'm comfortable. This is what the science shows, but try and do it in a way that feels, yeah, just like you're chatting with someone, that person. You kind of understand who they are and what their values are.
Speaking of values and authenticity and finding what resonates, what is your process for coming up with content ideas? We like to ask this question. Everyone does it different ways, from keeping notes from what patient questions are to look at what's trending. What is your process?
It's a little bit of all of the above. So both my husband and I like, and he's also in it, right? He's in the trenches, like watching the videos, finding out what's trending. So I think he's a little more on the pulse of like, hey, there's this trending sound or there's this thing. And sometimes I'm like, what? This is crazy. But then I see it take off. I'm like, oh, you were on that earlier than maybe I would have been. So it's listening, like reviewing content, what people are posting and trying to see if there's any trends or things that resonates in our field. Because a lot of it doesn't, right? Like there's certain trends that you're like, I can't weave that into my space. And then a lot of it is what are the common questions I'm getting through DMs, through patients, through those interactions. And it kind of surprises you sometimes. You're like, why are so many people asking that same question? I didn't realize that was so prevalent, right? Yeah, I would say those would be the two things, like just hearing the feedback and then viewing sort of what is happening in the space would be the main ways. And then I'm also just as I'm inspired, like for example, on the weekend, I posted a picture of my Raynaud's and like my own hand. And like the number of DMs that piled in that were like, I have this. What is this? How do you treat it? And I'm like, oh my goodness, like that is something that I've had my whole life and I've managed as a dermatologist, but never thought to do a post on that. So stay tuned. I'll do a post on that. But it's just like sometimes it's those things that you're like, I didn't realize so many people had questions about that or that that's a good piece of content to create.
What's the next step? So you have your content ideas, and then just from a very tactical level, we like to provide tips. Do you keep like on your notes app on your phone? Do you keep a list? And then how do you move it from the idea into the actual filming? Like, what is your process? What tools, what workflows? Do you batch create? Do you have days of the week? Do you do it whenever you have time?
Yes. So I have Google Docs mostly because my husband and I are both on there. And so there's like one master Google Doc that has like all my ideas ever. And there's some that have been buried. And I'm like, oh, we need to bring that back up. So that's where the ideas go. And then those get translated into like filming docs with more scripts, right? That are like, okay, this is the one we're moving forward. We'll create sort of outline scripts, ideas, even to the point of like what the text on screen and caption will be. And then definitely batch filming. I think it just makes it easier from a practicality perspective. And again, I know I'm so fortunate because Ben, my husband, he's at home and he's like, I get home from clinic. I'm like, and he's like, get ready, we're filming. I'm like, no. And he's like, we got this. He's sort of like rah, rah stage bomb. And I'm like, okay.
I love
So
it.
then we go and film and try and get some content batch filmed just because it's easier to kind of to do that sort of once or twice a week where you're not sort of just trying to do a video here and there. I know many people are good at doing like the filming in the car and just like in the moment on the fly. I tend to be like, want to be fully entrenched in that moment and set up and know what I want to communicate. And so that's sort of my process that works for me.
I think a lot of people that we've spoken to do batch filming. How many videos do you do at once or when you sit down?
I would say we usually film for like an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. And when it's all set up, right? Like I know what I'm going to say, I know what I need to have, and I'll have it all ready to go, then it's easier to kind of bang out 4 or 5 videos if they're quick, right? All in a row. So it's, it's not a ton of session, but it takes a lot, right? Because you're trying to like communicate it in a way and you have to bring in energy. And so I don't want to drag that out for too long myself.
Yeah, you want to be on when you're doing it.
You want to be on and like, I feel like people can tell when you're dragging a bit and you're just like, that wasn't my best stuff. I was not feeling it. Right. And when we have such a short video time frame to communicate something, you want to do it with like enthusiasm and they can understand and you feel good about the way you deliver that content.
I like to think of it as bringing the same energy that I would bring into a patient interaction in the clinic, because that one-to-one interaction always fuels me and I want to be there for my patient. I want them to know they're the only person in my world right at that moment. And if you can bring that kind of energy into the camera, I think that does portray. And I think people know if you're not feeling it.
Oh, it totally comes off. And I think that that's what you were saying about your authenticity or just to be able to convey your mood and your energy through your videos. And so you're very lucky. Do you have a larger team? So now you film your content and then your husband edits?
Yep. So he edits, and even with brand stuff, he'll be the one going back and forth with the brand on scripts, right? And how we would communicate that message, reviewing briefs. And then similarly with scripts, like he knows we've been together for so long, and I've been in practice in dermatology now, well, including residency for like 16 years ish. So it's been a long time in this world. So it's nice in that we have sort of a unified language and he knows the way I will speak and what will be the way I'll communicate. So yeah, so that's sort of he will then take the video content and we'll film it multiple times and he knows when I'll be like, okay, yeah, I need to refilm that. And so sometimes poor guy has like 17 takes of something. And then I'll be like, did you find a good one? But he'll know the ones also that I would be okay editing and including in the final edit, right? So then yeah, he'll work on it and then show it to me and we'll go back and forth a couple of times. But now it makes it more seamless because we kind of understand each other.
And then does he post it or do you post it?
He posts it.
Wow. This is a social media manager slash editor slash agent. It's great.
I know. I'm so lucky. He like comes to the AAD, our big conference, and everyone knows him because Ben's like there filming us and like he's doing that. And it's nice because when you're that entrenched, he kind of does know the industry. He knows the dermatologist. Like he's like, oh, say hi to Dustin. Like you get to know the people in the field and the topics. And because it's his full time job, whereas I'm in clinic, it's nice because he's able to look at the field and understand the trends and understand how social media is evolving a little bit more than sometimes when I'm in clinic, I'm not focused on those things.
Yeah, it really sounds like the dream team. We have talked to so many people and the teams that they put together to make all of this happen very widely. And the ability that you have to work together, I'm sure it makes it a lot easier on so many different fronts. And you mentioned this is kind of his full-time thing now. I want to ask about like what kind of doors has social media opened to you? You enjoy the education process, putting out good information, but it's also been a way that you've been able to generate a little money. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that and maybe even educate us on some of the nuances between American derm versus Canadian derm, because there are different regulations around that. But so first, I guess the question is like, what kind of doors has it opened to you? And then some of those nuances between the two countries.
I think doors for me is that it's certainly in the social media world, it's very fun in that it's creative, right? I was very involved in like academic derm, research, clinical trials, publications. And this is a little bit, I would say, in that fun, creative side. So being able to do things with brands or at conferences that are on more on the social media side have been really interesting to be part of. It's taken me to videos and photo shoots around the world. It's allowed me to expand this creative side with my husband, which is really cool. And then, for me, one of the things I always said, like, if I wasn't a derm, I would have done something in marketing. Like, I love marketing and launches and thinking about language. Like, how do we communicate this super interesting science in a way that will resonate with other healthcare professionals or with our patients or the consumer? And so, with that, I think social media allows you to think about language so much more. And then Ben and I also started a little side company called Derm Strategy, where we consult with brands on marketing launches and brand launches and some of their campaigns. And that's really fun just to see that other side of a launch of a different skincare item or different ideas to help target HCPs and sort of show them the science. So those are a few opportunities that I think social media allowed for me. And then as it relates to Canadian versus US, it's interesting because I'd say Canada is much slower, has been slower on the social media front. There's not many of us on social media. And I think it's just the way our healthcare system is. It's less business, it's more like you go to clinic. And there hasn't been a lot of conversation around social media. It's getting more acceptance now. And there are some different regulations across Canada and different provinces around what doctors and dermatologists can do and say on social media. So, for example, Quebec has more strict regulations. And then even just advertising, right? We don't have TV advertising showing different medications or drugs on TV here. Like it's so the whole vibe is a little different. But I'd say there's more acceptance of it as a form of education and tools. And many derms in Canada will work with, it's North America, right? Like our audience, as we know, is US and Canadian based. It's not like social media has boundaries, but it's nice to offer a little bit of a Canadian spin for some unique things, like things that we don't have that are over the counter that you have or other issues like that.
Going back to partnerships, do you remember who was your first partnership?
Oh gosh. Trying to remember. I remember doing a very early partnership with Olay, which is interesting. And I had like laid out an outfit. I just remember that because I was like, ooh, what are we going to do? That was very early. Around the same time, like I had done something with Cetaphil and like a few others around that early days.
Who is your dream partnership now? So you've worked clearly with a lot of brands. What's on your bucket list, I would say?
I just think continuing, honestly, I love the skincare brands I work with. I love the new opportunities with different launches. I think what's interesting now is I do so much in the aesthetic space. And just now, are the different aesthetic companies with devices and fillers starting to engage in social media as an advertising platform and more to educate. So I think there will be more of a role or potentially opportunity for partnerships there. And then the other thing I just love is partnering with my colleagues, right? Like we're all in this space together. And when I get to do collaborations with like Dustin or other friends at the AD, like it's cool to be able to do those types of things. So those are my dreams.
Very fun.
That's amazing. And just one last question, at least for me. If you had a piece of advice for somebody that's starting, they're not sure what platform to be on, they're not sure what to do, maybe they're uncomfortable filming content. What advice do you usually give someone that wants to start on social?
I mean, I think starting out, it's really important, I'd say, to understand your why, right? Like, why do you want to do that, right? And speaking to having Canadian audiences and content and Canadian dermatologists or other HCPs, sometimes it's just about getting people to know you. And maybe that will open doors with building your practice. Or if you want to do more aesthetics, certainly having people understand who you are and what you do is important. I think when you know your why, like, is it education? Is it building your practice? Is it because you love being creative? When you know that, it makes it so much more easy to engage in it and put in the effort and work.
I think that's very well said. And, for our audience, it hits on a theme that we've talked about many times. Nobody gets into it and says their why is to generate revenue, to have a side income. That may be a byproduct of what you do, but I haven't met anybody who went into it for that reason that ended up being successful because they don't have the ability to be patient through the growing process. And it is a process. But when you go into it with your why being, I'm going to help people, I'm going to be giving education, I want to share very important knowledge that I've been given through my education pathway. You're going to be able to maintain that through the ups and downs that are inevitable on social media.
Absolutely.
Could not agree more. We are in it for the long game.
One thing I've noticed on social media with your content is that strict, very scientist based and avoiding some of the sensational stuff that really doesn't have a lot of substance to it. Is that kind of an intentional way that you approach your content? Because people are out there saying all sorts of things and you're really always coming in trying to back up everything that you're doing with sound scientific advice.
One of the things that I'm seeing more of now is, and I think we kind of touched on it, that I'm still like myself struggling with this. And I don't know if you are, Dustin, is like the viral videos that are more related to kind of the crazy comments and like this is the way it is, or this is, you need to do this now, or if you want to grow your hair, try this. And it's so tricky because I'm so rooted in science and wanting to be like, okay, like, yes, there's one small study on rosemary oil for growing hair or spearmint tea for acne. However, like you just want to try and root things and like, okay, let's just take a breather before. But it's like nobody wants the sort of like cautious, like sitting on the fence approach to targeting those things. But I think, it is the way of trying to communicate stuff in a science driven way, but with at least a little bit so people are like, I want to understand and listen more, right?
I think that's key because, like, real science is often not very sexy. It doesn't have like some massive hook that draws people in, just like, here's a hack. It's that level of secret knowledge. Like, they don't want you to know this type of thing. If you just do this thing, you don't have to go to the doctor, whatever it is. And it is a common theme around the things that we're fighting against on social media. And when you have principles and you're trying to stick to them, you feel like you're handicapped almost because you're maintaining those values and that scientific basis all of the time. And you're like, how do I compete with somebody who's just spouting nonsense?
But I will say a very large skill that both of you have is being able to translate that science into digestible layman's terms or even like at that third grade level so the majority of people can understand. So like at a very basic level, I think the job is already challenging to be able to say, okay, how do I take that science-based information and transform that or communicate it in a way that is engaging?
For sure. Yeah. And I think that's a constant thing is thinking who needs to hear this and how do you communicate in a way that's balanced, but also enticing to listen to. Like, not everyone wants to hear the like, well, it could be this or it could be like, they're like, just tell me what I need to know. Right. So you're there, you want to be with them there, but also not just fall into the trap of being like, this is the one thing you need for this or whatever it is, right? So, yes, we need a little bit of that, but then also balance the science that sometimes you see these trends or stories go just wild. And you're like, how is everyone trying that for this condition now when there's actually not a lot of science to back that up?
Right. And it goes back to your previous statements about the creativity that goes into this, the art of it, that playing with language a little bit to try to communicate a message more effectively. And that for me is also what keeps social media very fun is this is not a skill I learned in med school. It's not something I ever did in high school. I was not into theater or drama in any way. It was like sports, sports, sports. And then this spark of creativity I've learned that is there. It's really fun to explore that and see how you can connect with people through that.
For sure. Did you go on Clubhouse, Dustin, when it was a thing for a little bit?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I was on there for a bit.
Yeah. I was on Clubhouse. I think I invited Mimi onto Clubhouse or
You
vice
sure
versa.
did.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where I was like, this is a skill. I like you kind of learned what people were asking about and trying to communicate it in a way that, resonated with that audience, but also, stayed true to your background and roots, right? So even though I spent a lot of time on Clubhouse and it ended up, at least I don't even know if Clubhouse is still happening, but it did give a little bit of skill with being able to try and navigate those waters a little bit.
Oh my God, I loved Clubhouse.
It's a fun adventure on social media, and who knows what will be next? What's the next Clubhouse flash in the pan platform that we'll jump on and spend more time? But Dr. Katie Beleznay, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Grateful for your knowledge and insights and in your fun way of creating content.
Thank you so much for having me. I always learn so much from you guys, and I'm really excited you made this podcast because I think it's so valuable to everyone who kind of wants to understand and navigate the space themselves.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you to the audience for joining us today. You have helped to make MedCreator 101 a very successful podcast with over 50,000 downloads now. So if you have found help from MedCreator 101, please share it with a friend who's interested in getting started on social media or growing their online presence. It helps us a lot if you leave a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts, and we can't wait to catch you on the next episode.